Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Deadwater titled Perched. And if we switch over to here we have ourselves the art on the screen for this on Music B. We're going to listen through this track from start to finish and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go, what do we got? Nice bit of angst to the chord progressions there. Like a flanger there with the distortion. I love how it fills out the stereo field.
Dead bird perched on a wire, a lonely girl has come to admire. The motel looks dark today, behind the wheel that is willing to pay. Blind eye find a way to see, light a torch and I'll let her be. Set ablaze the lake of fire, frozen hands don't perspire.
Good move there. One thing I liked is that there's a bit of distortion to the vocal takes, and the reason that I liked that is because it helped to seg them within the mix. Really, they had a similar kind of that similarity there.
If I'd known the price to hold your hand, if I'd known the price to sever my own. Dead bird perched on a wire, lonely girl has come to admire. The motel is dark today, behind the wheel and a willing to pay. Ride home and don't talk to me, God knows I wanna be free. Coming eye of the storm, from a twisted life reborn. Yeah. And if I'd known the price to hold your hand, and if I'd known the price to sever my own.
Oh, nice trade off to a solo section. I mean, it's an iteration of the vocal motif, but still. Ironically, that's probably why it's because when you do a solo, sorry to interrupt, when you do a solo section, if it can be good to work off of the existing made melodies.
Well, if I'd known the price to hold your hand, and if I'd known the price to sever my own. And if I'd known the price to hold your hand, and if I'd known the price to sever my own. I said, ride home and don't talk to me, God knows I wanna be free. Calling eye of the storm, from a twister life reborn. Dead bird perched on a wire, lonely girl has come to admire. The motel is dark today, behind the wheel and willing to pay.
A little bit of fuzz at the end, nice. No, I like how that's been written. We're going to talk about that more in the conclusion. And welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Deadwater titled Perched. Now, what do I think this track is about? Truth be told, I'm not sure. I mean, I got bits of it, but I haven't really surmised an overall theme yet. It talks about the price to hold someone's hand and then the price to sever his own. And he talks about like the limbs and like dead birds and stuff like that perched on a wire and lonely girls and stuff like that. I'm wondering if it's talking about a sacrifice that he's made in order to be with a person or in a situation they're in, and that he's just desperate to get away from it. Is that maybe he should have known not to get too close, and now was he the dead bird that was perched on a wire? Like he thought he was safe and then he got shocked or something like that? I'm not sure. That's my best guess though, is that we were in a situation where we thought we were safe, we thought we were doing something that was really positive, and then things kind of went terribly wrong and are kind of figuring out where to go from here. I like the way it's sung. There is a general sense of dissonance and disdain from the vocal performance there, not just from like the crispiness of the light distortion on the vocals. That did help it again to meld in well with like the overdriven guitars and stuff like that, or the distorted guitars, but also I just think in general there's like a savage kind of coolness to it, and not just like from the fact that it sounds like I like the vocal style, but it's also like we are trying to sort of like acclimatize ourselves to the situation we're in, where there's just really things are really kind of frosty and kind of awful. We're trying to sort of like find a way to like we're setting up barriers, and we're sort of coming to terms with the price we have paid, and that comes through in the performance. I think it seems like a very authentic performance. Like this is something they've actually gone through, like not literally I assume, but probably figuratively. And I think that like the earthiness of the overall manner of the way it's done adds to a kind of it doesn't just suit the guitars, but it also just suits the general sort of vibe of the basses and the drums and the vocal. There were also some vocal harmonies where we went like lower or higher, something like that, kind of thicker in the hook parts, which added a nice bit of oomph in there that was more than welcome. And just in general, it's very good. The track at 3 minutes 25 starts with some distorted guitars, then we get more guitars, and then we get bass and drums with the vocals accompanying. The vocals being the main focal point aside from a lead solo that iterates upon the existing motif put in place by the vocals earlier. We're very confident with our main melodies and our concepts within this. The drum groove that we have dum 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 is catchy as hell, and it just keeps us pumping along. There are some variations to that, if I remember correctly, but that predominant kind of lead focusing on the eighth notes or quarter note accents is really solid, and it works well with the bass. It's just an underlying thickness, a fullness that allows the sizzly guitar tones to stand on by. I think we either have bar chords or we have power chords, one of the two, if not both, kind of alternating throughout there aside from the lead solo, which flew around the minor scales there. We might have had some modulations or some harmonic majors or minors, but I think we were traditionally going around modal scales. And I think that was a smart move that we didn't go too kind of buck wild for the solo, because it allowed for the rawness of the rest of the takes to kind of stay consistent. If you kind of make the solo more sophisticated than the other parts of the mix, it can seem like it's trying to be better than the rest. So I'm glad there was that sort of tonal performative consistency there. I like the fact that we had variations in the amount of guitars there were. Sometimes they were in the center, sometimes they were on the far sides there. They were rough and gritty and just ready to throw down, and I think it communicated the feelings that Deadwater had when now it's singing in this track really well. That there was a nice connection between the guitar tones, especially in the story, and the imagery there, and it helped you to better imagine it. Not that the lyrics weren't impactful, but I mean, just why not have more than one thing that's really good? I'm well impressed with the way that the theme itself sounded sort of disgusted with the whole entire ordeal. It was a relatively not that it was played badly or that it sounded bad in the sense that it was poorly written. I think that dun 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 that loop there is just, it's awful, it's depressing, but it suits the atmosphere and the environment we're trying to create with the story and the tones of the instruments very, very well. I'm glad that we were brave with that motif and stuck it forward. You really got a feeling from that as well about what the singer was going through. And as I understand it, this is like a one-man act or something like that. So the fact that we managed to get all these different parts tight is it's admirable. I'm well happy with it. But I think that the theme definitely made me feel like this was a massive struggle for them, and they were regretting their decision. And if they had known the price, would they have done it again? But I don't think there was a note out of place, and overall very satisfying. One more thing, I liked how the solo guitar, the lead guitar if I'm not mistaken, went for like 3 bits of it. Usually you have like 2 or for like 8 bars or 16 bars, but I think we might have had like 12 bars of it, and it was just nice to have the vocals come in after that in a way that was unpredictable, because that sort of compositional diversity makes the track more enjoyable, even if it's within that sort of safe 2 to 4 minute sweet spot. The studio recording, mixing and mastering. When I was first listening to the track, I was happy with the way the guitar sounded given the style of music we're doing and stuff like that. The vocals initially sounded quite present, and I wasn't sure if the vocals were too loud in the mix. But once the bass and drums came in, everything made sense in context, and it was good. Things were nice and wide in the stereo field, things around us in the headphones, especially the difference between the center and the wide guitars there. There was nice use of like flanging and stuff like that, in addition to the distorted parts and the guitar tone, that it's just as much of a compositional thing than a studio thing. I like that the mix itself wasn't too clean. We didn't try to sterilize it and make everything sound pristine perfect. There's a roughness and a grittiness to the way things were thrown together as well with their tones. That said, there were no resonant frequencies in the frequency spectrum, so things were nicely niched there and had their own spaces, nicely filtered and EQ'd. And there was dynamic range to this. Things weren't the same loudness the entire time. There was a definite difference in the loudness between like the starting part, and then as more of the parts came in, it just kind of crescendoed from there, kind of, you know what I mean? With the vocal performance, I think the effects processing of adding a little bit of distortion or something like that to it, alongside just getting a good vocal take, was absolutely pivotal. I'm glad that we didn't do much more than we did with the vocals. It was still nice to have that the rough edges there. And again, for the final time, I know I've said this a few times, it really did help it kind of stay in with everything else. And just as a final note, it was also nice to allow without pumping, so the bus compression and limiting were handled. And effectively, this is my review of this track from an act named Deadwater, titled Perched, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show us some love via their various social medias and Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.